Are you scheming any big projects for 2020?
Well, that didn't age well, did it?
Welcome back to fksalad. I'm here with my friend Nicole today. We're downtown Kitchener. I don't think we'll be driving around today, but I've come on her lunch break from work, and we thought we'd finally connect after meeting for the first time this past summer. It's nice to have you on.
Thanks. It's great to be here, and it's great to meet again.
And you've never done a podcast, you said?
Nope, first time.
Well, first time for everything. So if you haven't been on a podcast, I guess you've never been on a podcast where you're given food. So we're going to start with that.
What? Cool.
In the glove box. We've got ourselves today. If we can get it out. Oh my goodness, it's actually stuck.
Oh, come on. There we go.
We've got a piece of vegan cheesecake.
Oh my gosh, this is already like such an amazing experience. Thank you.
Well, thanks for coming on. Like I
Vegan
said,
cheesecake?
you can try a little bite.
Yes.
I did not make it.
Oh, cool. Where's it from?
This is just a store-bought cheesecake. Yeah,
That's great.
Yeah, tastes just like cheesecake. So on this show, we try and just touch on the surface of different plant-based options. I don't know what your kind of diet is. It doesn't matter to me. But what I try and do is influence others of what kind of stuff I eat. So thank you for trying a little bite of that. Feel free to pick away at that. But let's just even start back to when you came through to my event, which is very cool. Because I think you pulled through on your own, and then you approached me. You're like, hey, I saw this online, and you just wanted to come.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool because the location, the Fritch Fragrance place, I remember when that used to be open, and I walked in there before, and he had some really interesting perfumes, and then I remember it closed, and then I saw that it was open for an exhibition. I was like, what? I want to check this out.
Yeah.
And I loved the way the space was transformed.
Cool.
And seeing your work was really neat.
Thank you.
I loved your photography work that you've done.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that you could appreciate the space, especially after seeing it when it was a running business.
Yeah.
So for those who are watching or listening who don't know, we did, myself and the Lost Vessel Boys, we did an exhibition in Fritch Fragrances downtown Kitchener, where there was this old vintage perfume shop and health store, and it's been closed, and then we kind of reignited the fire in there, I guess.
It was sweet, and there are other vendors as well, I think like Trish Abe and some other, and there's a little bar, and
Well, it's very cool that you would go out to small pop-ups like that. Have you found any other cool hidden gems like that locally in KW before?
I tried to. I like to just kind of, I don't know, connect with other artists who are doing interesting pieces and things, and kind of just support. There's something new happening. If you heard of 44 Gaukel, that space apparently is going to be a mixed-use space for different artist studios.
Okay.
So that could be interesting. I'm kind of curious about that.
Where did you grow up? Did you grow up in Kitchener-Waterloo?
I didn't, actually.
Okay.
I grew up in Windsor, Ontario. So
What was that like?
It was really interesting. It's a border town. Its borders Detroit. So growing up, we would always visit Detroit, and it became this interesting city to kind of this extension of Windsor. The only thing that was stopping it was just the border crossing. But I went to art school in Windsor, and it wasn't known to be an art school.
Okay.
So it was a very just a general University of Windsor, and studying art there was very I took a lot of inspiration from Detroit.
Right.
And I was just really interested in all the different buildings and just what Detroit was going through at the time, which was kind of just, it definitely had a lot of rough patches. And so after that, after graduating school, I did my undergrad there. I wasn't sure what was next. I kind of wanted to go into design more and study graphic design. So I decided to go to Toronto and study at York. So I moved to Toronto. I did school there. And then after that, I kind of just, I was open to living anywhere. I didn't know where it would be.
Right.
And I
found Kitchener.
Yeah. I didn't know a lot about Kitchener at the time. It kind of grew on me after a while.
Yeah, I feel like for anyone moving to Kitchener-Waterloo, it's definitely a cool city. Maybe not growing up here wasn't the move for me, or if I didn't grow up here, I'd be kind of eyeing Kitchener-Waterloo. You can see all the cool stuff happening. And it's nothing to say I didn't have a nice growing up or upbringing here.
No.
It just obviously hits different, right? It's
Of
like
course.
it's like you going back to Windsor or something.
100%. It's the same thing. It's like I wouldn't be able to sometimes maybe see certain things or until I moved away and lived here. Or
Right.
certain perspectives or
Yeah.
100%. I think about that too sometimes, like what would happen if I moved back to Windsor.
I think your work is pretty much a bit of everything, because I was just in your studio, which we'll show those clips in a few seconds. And you had so many different little things on the go.
Yeah.
How would you best describe your work? Or is it your work and then you can apply it to different types of mediums?
Yeah, I like to experiment with a lot of different
Cool.
media, but I don't really know. I guess I call myself like an artist, but I definitely enjoy kind of testing out different forms that it can take. Like I've been working with fabric a bit. I love screen printing as more of a tactile medium, and I do a lot of work on the computer. So sometimes a lot of it starts out digitally, but then, you know, it can change forms, or sometimes I'll like start by playing with like physical objects and then scan it onto the computer.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I like the mix of like, I like not being, I guess, just specific to one. I like to kind of dabble with a bunch of different things
Amazing.
at a time.
For anyone who hasn't seen your work, which they'll see very shortly,
Ooh.
how would you best describe it?
It's usually a collage mix of combining different materials into one composition. Like I play a lot with different physical objects and materials, and I enjoy the process of almost transforming them by scanning them onto the computer and kind of giving them new meanings and kind of like playing with them a bit
Okay.
and seeing what other like new worlds can be created out of that. So I would say it's like maybe mixed media collage is the best way to say it.
Awesome.
Put it. And sometimes the collages are just like digital explorations. Like I'll post them on Instagram, or they're my own personal explorations of like figuring out what, you know, these two materials do together. Like I'll become obsessed with like a new material. Like for example, like last year I was really obsessed with like dot votes and sticky notes.
Okay.
I don't know, because I was working in this office space that used a lot of them, and yeah, and then I decided to collage them together, and they formed like these really interesting layers and then they formed like these new colors. And anyway, so that would be an example of like one obsession. And then another time I was obsessed with using the flowers in my apartment. Every week I would get flowers at the market, and then they would slowly start to die every 7 days. And I would, before throwing them out, I would just like scan them and form these like compositions with flowers, and then combine it with other elements on the computer. And
Cool.
yeah, so kind of,
I didn't realize that
Fun.
I didn't realize your scanner was like one of your best friends, I guess.
yeah, it really is.
Is that something that's common in the digital art space, or is that something more your niche?
I think it's common.
I just don't
I think
know.
there's so many different ways you can use a scanner. Like maybe it's my way of adding in that photography element into my work.
Okay.
So, and then I combine it with like illustration. I'm kind of interested in that area where it's abstract, but it's also recognizable. Like the viewer can understand what is happening in the piece, or like can kind of grasp like these are some like elements that I could recognize, like a flower. But then there's like this element of like mystery or curiosity of like, oh, I'm not really like, this is foreign to me. Like this doesn't feel like it's, you know, like something taken from the physical like world. It's
Right.
something that's computer generated,
Okay.
I guess.
What would you say
Yeah.
is one of your favorite projects in the past 2 years?
Ooh,
Or top two, if you
that's a
have
good
to.
question. It was really interesting working on, I did this piece in October last year, and it was for the TTC
Okay.
in Toronto, and I had to cover the ceiling of a TTC one streetcar with artwork, and that was interesting. I never thought that, I never imagined like work that way. I guess like
Right.
thinking about it, you know, that you're looking at it on the ceiling of a TTC car, and that was fun. I really like, you know, played with different elements and pieces that all formed it together. Sometimes I feel like finding the balance between chaos and calm is tricky for me, like finding that balance between not being so overwhelming, but also something that is like very, I don't want to say interesting, but like you look at it again and you kind of see new visuals or new things in the composition. Like you can pick out, so that, and then also the balance between kind of planned mark making and unexpected, or like just things that you don't plan for that happen in the process. I guess another project, what was interesting was the one I did recently for Spectrum, the climate emergency experience that the museum is doing right now. And it's a pop-up shop that's in Uptown Waterloo, in like the Waterloo Town Square mall. Yeah, it's like that mall. Yeah, and I played with fabric, and that was a project, a good example of something that I didn't know how it would turn out. I was really nervous. It was my first time doing that, and I was like, I didn't do a good job planning it at all. I was like, I had this idea in my head. Let's see if this works out. So I did this giant piece of fabric that it kind of covered with these earthy materials. It's like these, I don't know, it's very kind of natural, but also the colors are super saturated. And then I projected this video onto it, and it was pretty interesting. That was a fun experiment.
Right on. Well, I guess we're gonna have to less talk and more visual. Maybe we'll show off some of your most recent work then, okay? We'll be right back. That's a good spot you got there.
It's a gorgeous space. It's very like rare, like special. I feel like a lot of those spaces don't exist.
How often do you get in there?
I get in on the weekends, or at least I try to. Right now my schedule is a bit that I work 9 to 5 on my full-time job, and then I would sometimes go to the studio after work, but usually the weekends it's best because there's a lot of natural light.
How do you find a balance right now between full-time work and your artwork?
Oh, that's a good question.
Or are we all still trying to figure that out?
Definitely still trying to figure it out. I guess they both require different thinking, like what I do full-time and what I do outside of work right now. But I try not to completely see them as separate. Like I try to see it as one, where I can use the kind of more creative, playful thinking I do outside of work during my 9 to 5. Sometimes I honestly feel like exhausted after work, and I don't feel very creative. So I've noticed that I'm the best in the mornings. So I'll just like wake up early before work and kind of just like get a lot done. I kind of don't do a lot of second guessing then for some reason.
Right.
So that's been handy.
Do you drink coffee or smoothies?
Yeah, coffee is like too much coffee probably. But
I always ask that now. People,
I like your iced coffee. It's great.
A little mason jar iced coffee. I don't ask that on the show, but I just ask that because I don't know. I'm trying to be a bit more productive in the morning. I think I'd do better in the mornings. But I'm on that night owl shift right now.
You're the night owl shift.
Yeah.
Which is fine too, if that...
It's just temporary night owl shift.
Yeah.
It's it's fine and I'm productive there. It's just kind of a drag waking up so late some days. When I know I'm fully capable of doing well in the morning. I just don't right now.
But I feel like since you're also traveling, that also has like the jet lag, and when your schedule changes, that's also hard too. So then it's like maybe it'll switch again when you're
honestly
on the go.
Yeah, it's actually worked like that a few times in my favor. I feel like I'm still living on like West Coast time or something right now. But no, it's all part of the process, I guess. Whatever gets the work done.
I'm learning, that's for sure. Yeah, it's hard. I don't know, but I guess we're all kind of doing it. Everyone's kind of figuring it out.
Yeah, and it's cool that you're figuring it out in Kitchener, Waterloo. I really enjoy when someone comes not from here to be here.
Aww.
It's a cool perspective to see, and that's why I thought I definitely had to have you on the show today.
Aw, thank you. I'm excited to learn more about you as well and chat more about
Yes, definitely. We will need to like stay in contact when I'm back this summer for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, let's get out of here.
All right, sweet. And taking this with me. Just kidding.
Do it.
This is really good.